Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, where we talk about all things e-com subscriptions. Today's dose is going to be all about churn, that is fighting it, what retention efforts you can make to increase the profitability of your program. We're going to dive deep into it, cover a lot of bases, especially getting into some of the fundamentals around what causes churn and how you can think about it just a little bit differently. Essentially, like on any of these doses that we do, I want to try to help frame your thinking a little bit to give you a plan of attack so that you can go out and get some things done. Now, before we dive into that, I do want to bring up an invisible problem that is plaguing subscription companies, and that is accidental churn. This is when an otherwise happy customer's legitimate payment is falsely declined by the credit card company, resulting in their subscription being canceled. There's a company that I'd like to introduce you to. They're a partner of this show and a sponsor of this episode called Butter Payments, and they focus on reducing accidental or involuntary churn and keeping customers around who want to be on your subscription. That's because the problem with involuntary churn is a lot of customers don't actually know that they are being canceled and they don't want to be canceled. Butter is able to automatically resolve those failed payments that otherwise would have led to churn and keep your recurring revenue and subscription customers as healthy as possible. I've got a link to their website in the show notes. So if involuntary churn, or if you're worried about those few percentage points you're losing every month because people are canceling and don't actually realize it, you should check them out. Okay. First thing I want to lead with actually is churn is actually, I think it's universal across the board that everybody's facing efforts at trying to retain their customers. But every business is a little bit unique. I'm going to be talking from very general levels. We do get into some specific tactics and things you should be doing. I think that every brand should be doing. But for the most part, I know that you're listening to this and thinking about how it applies to your business. So that being said, I'm not sure I've done this before, but I'm going to put my email in the show notes of this episode. So if you have any specific questions related to what you're doing or issues you're running into, please feel free to send me an email. I would be happy to reply and give you my insights. Okay, so I think first, when we're talking about churn, it's important to understand there's kind of a couple different mindsets here, and one that I've run into with some brands is this idea of like they're really, really worried about the people that are leaving. And so, and this makes sense, right? So if you're starting a subscription program, that first month is usually the most painful. You're losing a huge chunk. If you're first getting started and don't have much figured out on the offer, you could be losing 70, 80, 90% of your customers in the first month. But most brands are somewhere in the 10 to 40% drop off in month one. And so what happens with some of the founders that I talk to is they're really, really concerned in like, how do I stop that from happening? How do I get rid of that? Or how do I keep that 30, 40% on longer? Or even better yet, this idea that you're selling a subscription for a discount, that people are coming in, grabbing that discount, and then canceling right away. We call it, a churn and burn is one phrase. But the idea is, you're selling protein powder and it's 30% off. You subscribe. People subscribe to get their first one. They get the 30% off. They cancel. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because that there's a little bit of a mentality shift, I think, required for understanding retention. Okay, so there are certain things that we want to do to try to protect the program. Like I mentioned involuntary churn at the start of this episode, and I'm going to talk about them more later on as part of this. But the idea is we actually really want to be focused on figuring out what's working and doing more of that. Okay, so retention is kind of two sides of this coin. We want to solve leaks in the bucket. If you forgive me for bouncing from metaphor to metaphor, we want to solve leaks in the bucket while also figuring out who's sticking around and why, and how we can get more of those people, okay? So let me give you an example. One I like to harp on all the time or talk about is our gym memberships. I myself have a gym membership. I do try to work out. I do a lot of running and crap like that. But if you think about it, lots of people sign up for gym memberships, right? Lots of different types of people sign up for gym memberships. Young, old, men, women, people that are looking for weightlifting or access to basketball courts or the sauna. There's lots of different use cases, right? So when we're thinking about a gym, and I'm thinking about fairly big gyms here in Utah, there's a brand called Vasa. I'm thinking specifically of them because that's who I'm subscribed to. When we're talking about gym retention, right? Gyms usually adopt a very difficult cancellation process, right? If you want to cancel it, you have to go in, you have to call a hotline, they try to hard sell you. It can be a little bit painful or difficult, right? And they're trying to fight churn by making it really, really difficult to cancel. The other part of gyms is like trying to find out, in this metaphor, is trying to understand who is getting the most value from that gym and who's going to stick around for the long haul. So for me, I've had the gym membership for several years now. Even if I'm not necessarily being super active, I keep it going because I do like being able to drop in occasionally. But say right now, I'm training pretty actively. I'm at the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week. So the idea with these subscription programs is we want to try to create processes around how people are onboarded, how people are canceling, what they're doing in the program, but we also want to understand better who's using it. So in the gym membership example, it might be that somebody signs up because they're really interested in using the sauna. They stick around for 3 months and then they're gone. Somebody who's just going to try to get in shape for a couple months before the summer and then they're gone, right? We want the people that say are finding it the most valuable are people that live in that area, that are investing in their long-term health. Maybe they have some exercise goals. They have some mental health goals that are connected to say like weight training or cardiovascular fitness. The idea is creating more offers that are going to speak to those types of people, right? So if I'm running ads for this local gym and I find out that people that are using a sauna aren't really great, maybe I don't mention the sauna as one of the perks or benefits. Maybe I'm mentioning a lot of the different equipment. I'm trying to craft messaging and offers that speak to the types of people that I know are going to stay for a really long time on their gym membership. Okay, so conceptually, high level, I hope that makes sense. Again, the idea with retention, what we're going to be talking about here is trying to uncover our best customers. Okay, so with that being said, let's kind of dive into some of the reasons behind why churn happens, right? So one of the most common, simplest things is like I mentioned at the beginning, price. Somebody's just interested in trying a product, trying what you're offering, and the cheapest way to do that is actually by grabbing a subscription and then canceling, right? The other thing might be unmet expectations, right? So somebody might see a weight loss pill that you're selling or something to help hair grow back for those of you that are watching the video at home, and it doesn't do that, or it doesn't do it as quickly or as effectively as the person thought, right? So there could be unmet expectations inside the subscription program. It might be that they're just not a good fit. They were, maybe they were interested in the protein powder, but it turns out that they don't like the flavor, they don't like the taste, they're not working out as much as they thought they would, right? So maybe not a great fit for the product. We could also be thinking about too much product. This is a really common issue with subscriptions, something that we've talked about a lot on previous doses. The idea being that somebody has too much product. The too much product is often actually something that can wrap up into some of the other reasons that I mentioned, but what's important for any brand that's facing a too much product issue is actually understanding why people have too much product. So for example, a pet food brand that I've talked about quite a bit on here that I love a lot is called I Heart Dogs. I Heart Dogs was tracking, they found out that one of the top reasons for cancellation was people had too much product, but when they dug a little bit deeper, they found out that people didn't know how much to order. So that was a problem they could fix, right? They went back and started explaining it better on the product page, and that actually fixed a lot of their retention issues. So when we're getting into churn and understanding how we can fight retention, we want to start to try to get into what is actually happening and why people are choosing to do what they're doing. So if we're collecting reasons on too much product and too much product is the answer, we want to start to understand better about why that's happening. Okay, there's a really strong tie as well into how acquisition and retention play into each other. Okay. So for the example that I was mentioning with people that might not be a good fit, again, let's think of if you're selling protein powder, you might be selling a product that you're claiming it tastes better than the alternatives that people have tried, but that might not be the case, right? So marketing your product as being better tasting than the competitor might mean is going to lead to really big retention problems because that isn't true. Now, not to say that all of you are like mismarketing your product, but the idea is we're putting out their assumptions into our marketing messaging around what people are going to find that is valuable on the subscription. And there's often a disconnect behind what happens on the retention side. So understanding what's happening on retention allows you to craft a better acquisition strategy. And that actually helps solve the retention issue. So like with the iHeartDogs example that I gave just a moment ago, they started to understand what was happening on retention. They changed how they were acquiring customers, essentially some of how the product pages are designed and how they're messaging people. And that fixed, they actually were able to convert better on the initial acquisition, and retention went up because of that. So the idea is, like I was saying, again, I'm going to be repeating myself a lot on this because I want to just hone in on this idea, is understanding what is working or what is not working for the people that want to stick around, fixing if it's a problem, or if it's something that's working right, going back to the marketing messaging playbook, creating more ads and copy and offers that speak to those types of customers. Okay. And then when we're talking about data, something, in case I start using these words, I do want to explain the difference between quantitative and qualitative data when we're looking at subscriptions. So quantitative, quant is the idea of is numbers. So looking at how many subscribers you're picking up each month, how many you're losing, how long they stick around, their average order value, their average lifetime value. That's all quantitative data. We're going to talk about some of that. And the other side is qualitative data, or quality is a sense of thinking about information that is not necessarily a hard number, but it's feedback that you're getting from customers, or it's opinions or ideas that you're collecting from them. So for example, you could say that quantitatively on a survey, 35% of people selected this answer. Qualitatively, it might be, hey, we're seeing a lot of people that are telling us that they don't like the flavor of this particular protein powder. Okay, so I just want to explain it. Quantitative versus qualitative. It's important to look at both. They both play together. They're both really important, and they can reinforce each other. All right, the other thing when we're talking about getting into retention and understanding churn and how we can combat churn, another term is called cohorts. So cohorts is just a way of segmenting people, and segmenting is just like splitting them or breaking them off into groups. So for example, a really common segmenting method within subscriptions, if you're using Recharge or any real subscription app, is you're going to see a cohort based on month. So say if you're looking at, say, 2023 data, you're going to see retention numbers based off of anybody who subscribed in January compared to February, March, all the way through the year. So that's a very, very simple way to start segmenting people, is about when they bought. The issue with that is that there might not necessarily be anything valuable unless you're doing different offers in those months. Like, say, somebody you acquire November versus March is going to be a lot different because of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But the other thing you can segment people by is like off offers. So for example, if it's Memorial Day, you're running a Memorial Day special, you could segment people based off of who bought during that time frame, or maybe with a specific Memorial Day coupon, and compare how that cohort of subscribers does to, say, somebody you picked up, or a group that you picked up in February, or versus a Labor Day special that you're running compared to Memorial Day. The other thing is you can compare cohorts based on, so like I mentioned, specials or prices, also on products. That's a really common thing that I recommend whenever I'm talking to a brand. Now, if you have just a single SKU that you're selling, or like a one hero item, this doesn't really work for you. But as soon as you get to 2 or 3 products and different products, you want to start paying attention to which products do the best on subscription, which ones have the highest conversion rate, which ones have the highest average order value, which ones last the longest, meaning how many months that somebody is on a subscription to that product. Those are all different data points that you can look at to try to understand better what's going on within the program. As an example, on the product one, say you're selling 3 products. If one clearly has a higher retention value than the others, meaning, say, an average life of that subscription is like 9 or 10 months as compared to 3 or 4 months for the other 2 products, that might be a product to start prioritizing. So instead of you could actually start highlighting that on the hero on the homepage. If you're thinking about like offers or specials you could be running, you could be focusing on that product And then you can always use the other two as part of like an upsell process or maybe a bundle process to like improve the average order value. But that's one of the like the simplest wins, is actually just figuring out what's happening and why from a cohort. This is, again, thinking of quantitative information, of thinking about what products are performing the best, what customer segments are performing the best. You can also start getting into the types of people that are buying, right? Those are all really, really important information. You can start thinking and you can cohort or segment people a lot of different ways. Don't want you to get too lost in the weeds, but understanding some of these basic demographic information related to like who they are, where they are. Maybe there's a difference between people that bought in California versus bought in Florida. There's a lot of different ways to kind of cohort that, but maybe start paying a little bit of attention to some of those basic data points, and you'll be able to start making better decisions on going after them and emphasizing them and who you're selling to. Okay, one of the other things, in fact, probably one of the biggest places most people are paying attention to, that you're probably paying attention to, and when I mentioned that cohort, say like the January, February, March, April breakout, is just kind of paying attention to like what's happening in month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4. So like what's happening over time. So somebody comes in, they subscribe to your site, say you acquire 1,000 subscribers in a given month. What happens at the first renewal, right? How many of those do you lose? Say you lose 30%. What happens at the second renewal? Let's say you lose an additional 25%, right? So we're already down to like 45% retention. But then when we hit that next renewal, it's 10. The renewal after that, it's like 6 or 7. It kind of settles down. So thinking about that first month or 2 being big drops, or if maybe like say a month 7 or 8, you're going from around a 5%, maybe month 8, it spikes up to 7 or 8% and then goes back down for 5% month 9. Again, it's kind of hard to visually demonstrate this with just using my hands or the sound of my voice. But the idea is we're paying attention to how the cohorts or subscriber base is performing over the life of a subscription. Again, month 1, month 2, month 3. So one of the simplest ways you can kind of start combating these issues and fighting churn within your subscription program is start identifying a couple of key points. So if it's very clear, like you're having issues with month 1, like massive drop off, that's your biggest problem, your biggest month. I'll come back to that in just a second. This is more like, hey, if you're thinking like month 2, month 3, once we get somebody to month 4, we're doing really, really well. So we're going to look at maybe making some improvements in month 2 and month 3 to get people to that month 4 point, or say if there's a dip in month 7. Some of the tactics that work for while you're trying to get people to go from month 2 to month 3 or month 6 to month 7 are thinking about, you can offer special discounts in that month. So you could let somebody know ahead of time, hey, your next subscription order is coming up. We're giving you an additional 10% off as just a way of saying thank you. That's a way that you can test that. You can also do additional things by offering like a gift. Hey, on this month, we're sending you a special sample of this other product. You might have maybe there's a content give or a special type of reminder you're doing to kind of demonstrate the value of the program. The idea that the simplest ways are price, like a discount, as well as doing some kind of gift or free sample insert. If you're running into really big drop off month 1, then the problem is most likely actually, like I mentioned before, an acquisition issue. So there's kind of 2 ways to approach this. You can start testing different offers to acquire a different type of customer that's going to understand the value a little bit better. You can also start trying to find out ways where basically like kind of doubling down on the unboxing experience, the initial messaging, like making sure you're doing a really great job of demonstrating the value of what people are getting. Sometimes people buy things because they're curious, and then once they see it, they're not as curious anymore, and that's one of the reasons that they cancel on like that first month. I would say if you're getting into issues with lots of people that are like canceling right away, and if you're collecting information or not, but you believe it's because of price, they're just doing it for that discount, you could actually try testing lowering the percentage amount. So that's not like the biggest reason why somebody might subscribe. And then you want to come back and offer like something else that's valuable. So like a bundle. So if we're talking about, say, like pet food, Okay, maybe you don't discount at 20%. Now it's only 10%, but we're going to include a free thing of puppy treats, right? So the idea is like trying to change the offer to see how that changes who you're acquiring. That's one of the biggest ways you can actually influence retention. Again, as I mentioned, like coming back to this acquisition side of things, is understanding the types of people you're speaking to, what you're trying to sell them, the value that you're offering, and then demonstrating that value through the product, through the unboxing, through your messaging sequences. So again, thinking about, we can target a couple of key moments throughout the subscription lifecycle to make some special offers to keep people around. Or if you're also running into some really big issues with that first month renewal being really, really low, you want to start testing better offers or different offers that don't involve price. Okay, I mentioned qualitative data. One of the things that I think that are kind of most important or critical is understanding that within a subscription, you are asking for a bigger commitment. And while that sometimes feels like the only way to get somebody to commit is just to give things away and or give away price and all these things, I do actually think that even before we get too far down that road, we want to start trying to see what information we can gather from the types of people that are hitting our websites and are purchasing from us. Quizzes are a really great way to start doing this up front. So if you're selling like a weight loss supplement, understanding some of the reasons why people are what they're losing weight for, what they're training for, what their goals are for. This doesn't always have to be a product recommendation engine. Like the idea of like find the product that's best for you. I think that can be useful. Like if you're selling a bunch of different coffee flavors and you want to create a compelling way that people can start like giving you finding the coffee flavor that's right for them that they might want to try on their first subscription order. But the other thing is if you're trying to solve or sell a solution like weight loss, sleep, you actually could start asking people like take our sleep quiz to see if we can help you. The idea being that you can get somebody to make a micro commitment, the idea that they can take a step farther along the purchase process and this commitment process of buying from you by actually giving you information. And that information can then be useful. So like in the idea of a sleep study, maybe you find that married dads are more likely to convert to the subscription than anyone else. So you could start running ads targeting married dads getting a sleep aid, right? The beauty is when you can start pairing that data all the way to the back end and understanding who's sticking around the longest, right? So married dads might convert better, but single moms stay on the subscription the longest, right? So there's always a trade-off between giving up a bit of conversion to acquire the right type of customer who will stay subscribed the longest. So that's kind of like the fundamental I keep coming back to is these are choices we make, but we want to try to uncover who the best customer is. And on a subscription, it's not always going to be who converts initially the highest. It's going to be who retains the longest, right? What is the lifetime value of those types of customers? All right, so quizzes work really well even before a purchase happens. If you're working on any quiz ideas, let me know. I'm happy to give you some feedback or some copy ideas, as well as post-purchase surveys. I'm a huge proponent of. If you've listened to more than one dose, you have most likely heard me mention them too. The idea, though, is we want to start asking questions related to, I mentioned at the top of this episode that one of the reasons people churn is unmet expectations, right? They had some idea about what it could do, and they subscribed, and then they were disappointed when that didn't happen. So post-purchase surveys can be really, really useful, first in understanding some of these assumptions that your subscribers are making, but also things that they're hopeful or expectant about, right? Like if you start getting messages, say you're selling pet food, and you start getting feedback that I'm just really excited for an organic, like something that's really going to help be safe for my puppy, right? That might be your marketing message already, but if it's not, and you start finding that more and more people that are subscribing to you are mentioning that as a reason why they subscribe, then hey, that's insight you can use to drive a higher conversion and better awareness, right, for selling your product. It's also something I think when we get into post-purchase information that we can start tying that to cancellation reasons, right? So if you have somebody coming in, say on a weight loss supplement, say that they're training for their first ever marathon race, and then the cancellation reason is that they finished their marathon race. Well, hey, maybe that's not a type of customer we need to worry so much about. They got the value that they wanted out of it, and that's fine. But if somebody tells you, hey, I was training for my marathon race and this made me feel bloated, or I needed a different type of supplement because of I had bad knee joints or something like that, we can start to find opportunities for different product developments, different retention efforts, right? So, like if you're getting a lot of people on a weight loss drug that are, a weight loss supplement that are training for a race or some kind of event, that's also an opportunity to create content around training for your first marathon, or what, these 3 exercises is what you need to make sure you hit in the gym every week, right? There's a lot of opportunity that comes out of the post-purchase survey. You can also survey customers throughout the life of the subscription, right? So month 1, right after they get that first box, that first shipment, you can send them an email, a text, or something asking for some feedback. You can also do that before an order is about to renew. There's different timings you can test these depending on what you're doing. I always want to be cautious about not just sending communications whenever and wherever, because you might actually just end up triggering more churn because people are now thinking about canceling you. But you can ask in a very kind of like simple, direct way of like how things are going, is if there's anything that they would change. A very simple, like Chris George from Sub Summit was telling me this example of just like frowny face, neutral face, smiley face. And if it's a frowny face or a neutral face, it launches like a survey asking what we could do to improve, or maybe even like opening a ticket with your customer support team. That way you're getting ahead of somebody that might be unhappy with the subscription and find out what you can do to keep them. And if they're happy, you can either get more information or ask for a referral, or send them an affiliate link or something to post on social. Okay, the final part of this qualitative data, as well as cancellation surveys, or cancellation questions, I should say, is the idea is somebody goes to hit the cancel button. You're going to ask them, say like, hey, why are you canceling today? And that's information, right? So you're gathering information: too much product, price, not using it anymore, I hate you guys, whatever the reason might be. You're going to start collecting that data. And that data is quantitative in the sense of you're starting to identify the top reasons why somebody might cancel or not. What can make the cancellation question really, really powerful is you can actually tie it to offers. And you can make offers that are triggering based off criteria. So a prior sponsor of this show, Zello, does this really well, where it's like, hey, if somebody's been on a subscription for 1 month versus 6 months, I'm not going to give somebody who's on their first month going to cancel 50% off their next shipment, because that's just silly. They're canceling because they just want a discount. But somebody who's been around for 6 months, you betcha I'm going to give them 50% off their next order if they're worried about price, to get them to stick around longer, right? You can segment people based off of who they are, what they bought, and you can time offers or trigger certain offers based off the reason. So like too much product, maybe a discount doesn't make sense. It's actually, hey, let's have you skip your order instead, for example. So that's kind of like what I'm talking about, is you can put in a cancellation quiz that's going to start gathering data you can use to try to figure out who's like happy, who's not satisfied with the program. But it also lets you start targeting in a tactical way how to keep people around longer. Okay. And then once with the cancellation survey, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, you use that data to start like figuring out how you can craft a better subscription program. So if it's somebody's not using it very much, or the price is too much, maybe you're acquiring the wrong type of customer. Maybe you need to shift your offer a little bit. Maybe you need to shift how you're explaining things, or maybe there's something you can do in the months leading up to when somebody might be hitting that type of churn reason, where you can start addressing that ahead of time, like doing a better job of demonstrating the value, of reminding them of the inferiority of alternative products to yours, that type of thing. Okay, offers. So I mentioned earlier, like when we're talking about addressing some of the different points of the subscription lifecycle, you can make offers. Discounts off your next order are really good, as well as say you're going to include a gift. I would caution you that these are not like this is not a silver bullet, meaning this is not just going to solve all of your problems. Subscriptions are about incremental gains, right? So if you can improve retention from, Say you might normally lose 10% of your subscriber base, and this given month you're trying to pull that back to 9 or 8 or 7, right? Those types of percentages as you scale become significant. So you can make simple offers around price. You can make simple, like a discount. You can make simple offers as part of an upsell strategy, including samples. But the idea is you don't want to necessarily just start just throwing away money, trying to get people to stick around longer without some kind of basis for why they're canceling or why they might be unhappy or why they're leaving, right? Because again, I can't stress this enough, how many times the retention issue does come back to the type of customer you've acquired. And that sometimes it's better just to let those types of customers go if you can't keep them profitably, right? You don't want to keep giving away the farm, because I know that a lot of you out there are losing money on that first order and you're planning on making it back on the second and third on the subscription, which is tough. That's hard. Hopefully you can craft it so that it's profitable on the first month, or at least break even so that you can make more money down the road. But if you keep throwing good money after bad to keep the wrong customers around longer, it's just not going to drive real growth for you. The idea is to try to identify who's sticking around and why, so that you can go out to acquire more customers like that, and even more, finding ways to make them more profitable. Okay. One of the last things I want to talk about too has to do with involuntary churn. I mentioned this kind of at the top of the show, but once you start getting, I'd say probably over 500 subscribers, this is going to start becoming a problem. I would probably worry about looking at a solution around 1,000 subscribers or more. Looking at somebody like Butter. Obviously, if you're doing 10 to 20 million in subscription revenue a year, this is already a problem for you. So if you don't have a solution in place, you should definitely check this out. But the idea is people cancel and they don't realize it. The two ways are like credit card expiration, right? Somebody doesn't realize that their credit card expired that they had the subscription on, and now the subscription's just failing and emails are hitting spam, or they never were paying attention to them anyway, but they were perfectly happy with the subscription. And now they don't even know why it's canceled, and they don't even think about it for 3 months. Like you wake up one day and realize you haven't been getting your subscription. This happens a lot. Or the other way is, the reason that involuntary churn stuff happens is because a lot of the payment processors, a lot of payment gateways, they're a little bit suspicious of what are often viewed as typical subscription industries, like supplements are typically a higher risk purchase than others. CBD is really common in this space, but the idea is once they're hitting your card, like just regularly, a credit card or somebody else might decide to deny that charge because they think that that shouldn't be going through. So somebody like Butter comes in and they actually have a really great AI machine learning process where they figure out the right ways to charge your customers' cards based off of a host of data that they see. So it's a really interesting solution. Again, I highly recommend looking at it. And if you are over 1,000 subscribers, it's probably already a problem for you. But thinking about, you basically are trying to save, like some brands I've seen as high as like 6 or 7% of their monthly subscriber base is hitting involuntary churn. Most are, say, around the 1, 2, maybe 3%. But again, even at 1,000 subscriptions, that's a decent chunk of change every month. So, okay, kind of tying this all back together, thinking through a mentality approach is, I want you to start thinking about, where are the holes in my bucket? Okay. Where are a couple of places that are just our friction points? Is the portal not doing a good job of letting somebody skip or pause their order, right? Is there a couple of months through the subscription life cycle where people are dropping off more than they should? Can I offer them an extra incentive, whether that's a discount or a gift that month, to try to hold on to people a little bit more? Make sure you have a really great cancellation survey tool in place that can ask the questions related to why people are canceling, but also give them a timely offer, right? Those are the kind of like 3 things I want you to be thinking about. If you're not doing those already, that's where you should start thinking about fixing some of the leaky holes in the subscription bucket. Other than that, and there's a lot of other things you could worry about, I want to flip that over and change the mindset to, okay, out of the people that I have, can I make them more profitable? Can I find out who in here is willing to buy more and more and more from me, right? So if you're not doing a compelling upsell offer, say at like month 3 or 4 for some of your other products in the subscription, that should be something you're hitting heavily through SMS and email marketing, or even within the subscription portal itself. You can also use gifts or inserts inside your shipments to get people to try the things. But you can also make upsell offers to membership programs, right? So thinking about like more exclusive offers, cash back, things like that. You again, thinking through how you can get more from the people that are sticking around. And this isn't like bleeding. You're not like trying to bleed more money out of a single dollar kind of thing. This is actually more like these are the people that like your product the most. They trust your product the most. They trust your brand. There's so many different reasons why they're staying on the subscription. So find out why they're doing that. Find out who they are so that you can try to get more people like that at the beginning. But also, what more can you give to them? New products you can roll out. Are there community efforts, right? So that's a whole audience of people that are willing to buy from you and that are at least somewhat paying attention to you, that you should be leveraging more so. So again, that's the approach. We want to think through how we can fix some of the holes that are happening where things are leaking, but we always want to take a blue ocean mindset that there's a lot of opportunity here, that we have a lot of subscribers, or even if you only have 100 subscribers, those 100 subscribers are seeing something and they believing in something. Find out more about what is working for them so that you can go out and get another 100. Okay, that's it for this week's dose. I hope that you got a ton of value here. Again, 2 quick things. If you do have any questions related specifically to churn in your subscription program, I've got my email in the show notes so that you can send me those questions. Also, please like or leave a comment or review on this podcast, on the YouTube channel. We'll answer those there as well. That's one of the few ways that we get feedback for what you're getting from this program. And if you are facing something like involuntary churn in your monthly churn statistics, then I highly recommend you look at a solution like Butter Payments. They're going to be able to save a lot of revenue for you right off the top. I'll see you next week. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.